Have you ever spent hours grading only to wonder if the scores really reflect your students' understanding or question if your assessments are actually helping students improve? So, if you want to learn strategies that make assessments meaningful and grading manageable, keep watching so that assessments can be more effective and fair for all students. In this video, we're going to be chatting all about formative and summative assessments, grading practices that build student confidence, and tips to save you time while providing valuable feedback. If you're new around here, my name is Kathy Martin and I help 6th, 7th, 8th grade and Algebra 1 math teachers experience more aha moments in the classroom, all while saving time and money with their lesson planning and resources. So before we fully dive in, let's make sure we're all on the same page with the difference between formative and summative assessments. Formative assessments are quick checks. They help us gauge where students are at in their learning before we give a final grade. Think of these as learning moments rather than grading moments. Okay, so for example, these could be like exit tickets or short Google form quizzes, even group discussions where you are actively hearing students explain their thinking. The key is to use these results to adjust your teaching and give feedback, not to calculate a grade. You might be listening to a student discussion and thinking, ooh, they really don't understand what I just taught them, right? Like they are way out on left field. And then then you might then have to pivot your lesson planning for the next few days based on what you've just heard in class, right? Okay, so summative assessments are the final tests, projects, presentations, or whatever that you've assigned that shows what students have learned. They're crucial for evaluating cumulative understanding at the end of a unit or end of a term. But both of these types of assessments allows you to guide learning effectively with formative feedback and then evaluate the mastery with summative assessments. Okay, so many people use standards-based grading as an effective grading practice. And standards-based grading is really grading that focuses on student mastery of specific skills or concepts rather than like an overall score. So instead of giving a single grade on a test, you would assess your understanding for each standard separately. There are a lot of benefits to this. Students, and one main benefit is students and parents really know exactly what area they need to be improved on instead of just seeing like a random percentage or a letter grade. Okay. Another practice that we can use to help us with effective grading practices is to focus on growth and progression over perfection, right? So a student's journey matters just as much as the destination. I know it sounds kind of cliche, but if we saw that students really struggled in the beginning, but now we're really starting to see growth, they're still not an A+ student, but we have to celebrate the improvement to help build confidence and motivation. Another thing I want you to consider, and this might be a controversial thing. Actually, I know it's pretty controversial, but allow students to redo their assignments or their quizzes. I actually allow students to make test corrections. So if they score on a test a D or an F, they can do test corrections, in my class that means they fix all of the mistakes that they made on the test. They rewrite it, they show me the work, they get the right answer. And then I will increase their grade to a C-. They do not have an opportunity to earn an A or a B. And I think earning a C- is very fair. And they can do the test corrections as many times as possible until they get it right. And they know that I am here. If they want to make an appointment with me at lunch or after school or even before school, we can do their test corrections together. So that's how I do test corrections. Personally, some things that teachers I think needs to be addressed is really avoiding averaging scores. Averaging scores across a unit can really be unfair, especially if students improve over time. So if a student scores poorly at the beginning but does well on later assessments, the average doesn't really reflect their true understanding by the end. So maybe an alternative that we can do instead of averaging is, instead of considering weighting like having a heavier weight, you know, not waiting as in like you're pausing, but instead of consider weighting later assessments more heavily, um, or focusing on more recent results. This shows what they've achieved by the end of the unit. Okay. And then finally, another practice that you can incorporate for more effective grading practices is to incorporate self and peer assessments. When students evaluate their own work or their peers' work, they learn and reflect on their own understanding. And I don't think we do this enough in math class and really in life. So if you want to do this, I think an easy way to do this is to provide students with a rubric, and then they can take their own work or their students' work and, compare it based off of the rubric, and they can assess where their work is based on the rubric and or a peer's work, and take responsibility for their learning, see how they've improved, see how areas of where they can improve, where they have had some shortcomings. It's really, really powerful. One thing that I think teachers all need to do is to give feedback to their students. Feedback like, hey, good job, or like, oh, you need improvement. That's like not really helpful, right? Like what good job did I do, right? Or what do I need improvement on, right? I think it's more important to give feedback that is specific and clear. So to say something like, okay, your answer is correct, but I need you to double check your steps right here to ensure that you are consistent, because this, you got the right answer somehow, but the steps here isn't going to work all the time, right? We want to focus on effort, right? Not just results. So by focusing on the approach, students start to value their own effort and problem solving skills, which fosters a growth mindset. So for instance, if I say something like, hey, I noticed you started using a new method to solve this type of problem. Great job with experimenting. This gives students the space that they need to feel safety, to try something new, right? And using positive language to frame mistakes. So if a student makes a mistake, we can try something like, hey, this shows me an area that we can work on together. Let's find a way to tackle this. This approach reduces fear, right? We don't have to say like, oh, you're wrong, or this is wrong. This is the wrong answer. What? How did you get that, right? Hey, like, wow, I really see this. This is really awesome that you tried it this way, but let's figure out a way to tackle this together. There's still, I think there might be a different way for us to solve this. So I have a couple tips on managing grading and assessment time effectively. One way that we can manage grading and assessment time effectively is, again, to use rubrics for consistent, faster grading. Rubrics provide clear criteria and it makes grading much easier, right? They also help students understand expectations. It's not like, and there's no gray area for students. Tip number 2, we want to batch grading similar assignments. We want to grade maybe the same question for each student in one go rather than grading an entire test all at once. One strategy I like to use is grading one page of the test in one sitting. So maybe in one sitting, I'm only grading page 1, and then the next sitting, I'm grading everyone's page 2, because then you just get faster and more consistent. And number 3, we want to prioritize high impact assignments. Not every assignment needs extensive grading, right? And you don't need to grade everything. So focus your detailed feedback on high impact assessments that reflect more of learning outcomes versus like your exit tickets or your warm-ups. So there's really no one size fits all, but I hope that this helped you find what works best for you and your students so that grading and assessments can just be easier. So if you're looking for a one-stop shop for everything you need to teach 6th, 7th, 8th grade and Algebra 1 math, come join us inside the Pre-Algebra Teachers Math membership. Log in, grab what you need to teach, and go. Click on the link to join us now.